ReasonConf is brought to you by our gold sponsors Ahrefs and Chain Street.
Okay, so some quick thoughts about documentation. It could be of any language, but since we're at ReasonConf, let's talk about reason. And one thing you should never believe is when a developer tells you this. No, it probably isn't. So I hope we all agree that documentation is a good thing. There's really two types of documentation. There's documenting your code and documenting an API. So let's talk about documenting code. You're supposed to, good comments tell why or how, not what. So this is a terrible comment. Hello, this does not, believe me, as a teacher of beginning programming, I see a lot of this. Okay? So let's improve it by saying, why are we adding 1 to the month? Answer, because the system returns months starting at 0, but we humans start with January as month number 1. Now, when we're going to document an API, it's all about the what. First of all, the people who use your API really don't care about how you wrote it. Okay, so you don't have to put that in your documentation. And how many of you have ever had to look at the actual code to find out what a certain function does when you're going through an API? That's not a good thing, okay? They should never have to look at your code to figure out what's going on. So for example, here's again a useless comment. Insert value into array. Wow, I sort of figured that out from the signature. So at the very least, you should add some sort of a description. I'm using markup in here, but use whatever system is convenient for you. And now at least we know what it's supposed to return and what it's supposed to do. Even better, actually, is when you have examples. And there's something that's been on my mind for a while about writing examples. I am so tired of these. These tend to be terribly abstract examples when all your variables are foo, bar, and baz. And I much prefer, at least in honor of Jimmy Hoffa, a concrete example that uses meaningful names. So please don't do this. And as long as I'm on my soapbox, I'm just so tired of hello world, and Alice and Bob really need to retire. So I feel much better now. Thank you. How do you feel? Okay. So talking about examples. So here's an example, and you should at least have one example that shows a typical case. That's good. Even better is if you put in the edge cases, what happens when you insert at position 0 and at position 3. Also, that tells you whether it's inserting before or after, because the word at could be a little bit vague. Now, the question is, what happens if I use a -1 or a 4 as the position to insert things? Hey, I don't want to have to look at the code, so again, I'm going to have to put in some examples of it. And in this case, I've decided that it remains unchanged. Or instead of, if you don't want to go too heavy on examples, you can describe it in the text saying, if you give me a negative or out of bounds value, then I'll return the new array, same as the old array. And this is a much better way of doing an example when you're documenting an API, because with this, chances that people will have to look at the code to find out what the function does are a lot less than what our first example. That is a lot of work. That's true. Writing this and getting good examples takes a lot of time, but the people who use your code will love you for it, and that's all I got to say about quick thoughts about documentation. Thanks.